What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and in this week's edition of the Movers and Shakers list, where we dissect the cards the TCG player have said are moving with the highest degree of velocity on their website, we are going to be looking at two of the biggest sets in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. We're going to be talking about Prismatic Evolutions, and we're going to be talking about Destined Rivals. Now, for Destined Rivals, we're going to be talking about a really cool subset, and in Prismatic Evolutions, we're going to be seeing some things which might seem, I don't know, unfavorable. We're going to be talking about some cards that are coming down in price, but as far as I'm concerned, I think this is fantastic to see. I think Prismatic Evolutions came out incredibly hot. Obviously, demand was through the roof and supply was incredibly low. I think the Pokemon Company International has been doing a lot to try and combat that. We've seen a lot of ETBs hitting the shelves. We've seen the new Costco packs which have come out, which are just absolutely loaded with packs. So we're starting to see more and more of that product hit the market. So we're seeing some prices come down, which is a very good thing. But I'm also going to talk about how what happens today doesn't have a whole bearing on what I think is going to happen in the next 3, 5, 10 years. I think Prismatic Evolutions is still going to be one of the biggest sets in recent memory, and I think it's got the opportunity to do some really, really special things. So with that out of the way, listen, we do this every single Sunday. We take the information TCG player sends to us, we dissect it, we have a ton of fun along the way, so if you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I really appreciate it. So with that out of the way, let's start talking about the Destined Rivals cards, which are bucking the trend and are absolutely crushing it in terms of price appreciation, and we are referring to the pre-release stamped promos. Now, the other day I did a video on cards in the Sword and Shield era that are under $15 that I think have the opportunity in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years to give us some XY type returns, right? We've all seen XY over the last 8 months just absolutely go crazy. So we're looking for some cards in the Sword and Shield era that are maybe undervalued. Again, cards that won't grow in the short term, but in the long run might absolutely pop off. And one of the things we talked about was stamped promos. This hobby absolutely loves stamped promos. And when you look at the pre-release stamped promos from Destined Rivals, checks almost every box you could possibly want. So what you have here is one of the most hyped sets of the Scarlet and Violet era. Like, that alone puts it on a pedestal all in of itself. And then when you add in the fact that the Pokemon that are on these cards, the Mimikyu, Typhlosion, Tyranitar, like, each of these characters have a very, very strong following. These are popular Pokemon. Sure, they're not the Pikachu, the Charizard, the Mew, the Gengar. Like, they're not that level of popularity. But if you look throughout the history of Pokemon, all of these characters have cards with very, very strong prices attached to them. So when you combine all of that together, the hype of Destined Rivals, the fact that they're stamped promos, which people love in and of itself, the fact that you have some wildly popular Pokemon on there, like, obviously these cards are going to do well, but even for me, I am surprised at how quickly these things have shot up. Look at that Tyranitar. That Tyranitar card is up 377%. It went from a $5 card all the way up to $23 in less than a month, which is wild to think about. The Mimikyu card, same thing. It's up 75%, right? The thing is all the way up to $17 when it started off in the $10 range, and Ethan's Typhlosion down there, right? Up to $24, up almost 60% over the last month. It is just incredible to see these cards come out so hot. I think it's very good. I think it's very exciting, but I also think this provides us with a really strong lesson. So I have very, very strong convictions that this mini series that's going to be coming out, that is going to be focusing on mega Pokemon, I think it is going to be huge. I think we're going to see some of the biggest names like Gengar and Charizard. I think they're going to have some really awesome cards, and I think the sets as a whole are going to do really well. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on what the pre-release cards for all of these sets are going to look like, and if I start to see highly hyped sites with some sets, with some big name Pokemon on it, I am going to try and get on the curve a little bit earlier than this, because obviously we've seen a strong growth here, and I have no doubt that we will see the same type of thing here in the future. Now, as I always say, just because this has done this in a very short period of time, this is an absolute vacuum. Destined Rivals has a long history ahead of it. We're going to have to see what happens. Who knows if they'll be able to hold on to these price points, but again, for all the boxes that it checks, if any cards have the opportunity to hold on to those gains in the short run, I think these cards could possibly do it. Now, going from cards that have absolutely crushed as of late, we're going to talk about some cards from Prismatic Evolutions that have been coming down, and as I said, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it's very healthy for Prismatic Evolutions. I think it's healthy for the hobby. So the first card we're going to talk about is the Eevee card. Now this card, as you can imagine, came out incredibly hot. Eevee and all of its evolutions came out just scorching hot from Prismatic Evolutions. You'll see this card was at $220 6 months ago. Now, one of the reasons for that is obviously Eevee and evolutions are wildly popular, but also because the pull rates in Prismatic Evolution are abysmal. At least this far, including Destined Rivals, no set in Scarlet and Violet has harder pull rates for specific special illustration rares than Prismatic Evolutions. It's about 1 in every 1,440 packs. The only set that compares to it is Evolving Skies, where the odds of pulling a pulling an alt art VMAX was about 1 in every 2,000 packs. So you have really popular Pokemon, you have awesome artwork, you have abysmal pull rates. You know, that's why everything was so frothy when it came out. But as we get more product that hits the shelves, as more of it's being ripped, even though the pull rates are bad, still more cards are going to hit the secondary market. And that's why we're starting to see these prices, you know, come down a little bit. So $145 for me is still a whole lot of money for this card. But again, at least with this one, you have the popularity of Eevee. So as you can see, over the last 6 months, it's come down 35%. To me, it doesn't look like it's slowing down. Maybe it'll find support here at the $150 mark. Who knows? Maybe it'll continue to drop, maybe around the $100 point. We're just going to have to see. Again, as I have said before, I am buying a ton of sealed Prismatic Evolutions product. I am a huge, huge believer that because of the popularity of the Pokemon, because of the hard pull rates, because of all of that, I think in the long run, the sealed is going to do really well. But I'm kind of taking a pause in terms of the singles cards. I'm going to let those flush out for a little bit, but I will be adding some of these higher tier singles to the personal collection as well. Now, speaking of some higher tier singles, I'm going to talk about some Pokemon now which maybe aren't in the top or even the secondary tier in terms of popularity out there. And we're going to talk about the Roaring Moon card. And this card's visually stunning. Like I'm sure, just like most of you, I've had the opportunity to see it in person. It is just a gorgeous card. The way the red and the blue and the gold all mingles together, it jumps off the cardboard. It is an absolute stunner. But you also know that I have a very long-term horizon when it comes to my personal collection and my investing side of things here in the Pokemon space. So when I see a card like this that maybe my heart falls in love with from an artwork perspective, my head says, hey, listen, in 10 years from now, are people going to be super invested and super interested in Roaring Moon? Because remember, that's what drives prices in the long run, is overall demand. So my thought process here is this: I don't know, I'm just not going to spend the money on it. It's at $190 right now. And you can see it's actually down from where it was 6 months ago. So this is a card that has gone through the whole wave of emotions, right? It was at about $200 6 months ago, started to come down a little bit, which made me feel good. And then it immediately shot back up to almost $300. It plateaued there for a little bit, and now it's been slowly working its way back down. So I wouldn't hate on anybody for having this card. From an artwork perspective, it's absolutely fantastic. But again, when I think about the demand that might be there in the long run, it just doesn't warrant me spending $190 on it right now. Even if it does have abysmal pull rates, even if I think Prismatic Evolutions is going to be such a fantastic, highly desirable set in the long run, I just don't think that there's going to be 10 or 15 cards, you know, that are in the $100, $200 range 3 or 4 years from now. So we'll see. Stunning card, but again, not something I'm adding to the personal collection, and it is interesting to see it start to come back down a little bit in price. And the final one is we're going to talk about the Ceruledge, because listen, you know I am a huge, huge fan. In the pre-release video that I did for Prismatic Evolutions, obviously I talked about the big chase cards, but I always like to highlight some cards that I just want to have in the personal collection from an artwork perspective, and this was one of them. And Scarlet and Violet era has been a very good era for Ceruledge. We've had all kinds of awesome artwork, but this card, again, over the last 6 months, it's actually down 5.45% versus where it started. Now, it followed a very similar pattern that Roaring Moon did, right? It came out, it started to just barely tread water, and then it shot up again to almost $250. And then as Pokemon Company begins to make good on what it promised, that we're going to see more Prismatic Evolutions out there in the market, we see what we should see. We see the price start to come back down. And in the long run, I think this might be a sub $100 card. I don't know where that Roaring Moon is going to end up. You know, maybe that card is going to buck the trend. Maybe long term it will end up as a $200 card. But this is one of the ones that I just think there's too much firepower at the top of Prismatic Evolutions for this card to end up, you know, north of $100 long run. But who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. I always say that. I can't predict the future. If you ever want to look like a complete and total fool, then predict the future on YouTube, because I guarantee you 7 years from now, somebody will go back, look at it, and tell you that this aged like milk. So the best thing I can do is say I hope you had fun along the way. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, but most importantly, I hope you have an epic rest of your Sunday. I will talk to you later. Have a great one, everybody. Bye.